Morning all. We're out on a dog walk again. My hair gets progressively worse every day. That's what you get from working from home, I'm afraid. You take very little care over your hair because there's no need really. The only people that see me are the postman and Fiona, my partner, and the dog. And the dog doesn't have a lot to say about my hair. So there we go. Right, so this morning I just wanted to talk a little bit about the launch of the Stacey West podcast 100th episode special. Now, what we've decided to do is try to pick the best 100 players of a generation. I think it's really hard as history rolls on to pick the best 100 players of all time. Grossly unfair on some really gifted players from maybe the 50s and the 60s who now, they're kind of, you've got to be 70 and over really to remember them in their pomp. And it's hard to then go and compare somebody like somebody like Tony Emery, who was obviously a Lincoln City legend, to somebody from the modern day, to somebody like Sean Raggett, for instance. Different game, different comparison. But I do think it's interesting how some players endure over a generation. No, Kate, I haven't lost Charlie yet. Very quickly, lost Charlie yet. No, we're going down a bit where I don't think there's any cows, so we should be all right. So, yeah, I think generational trends are going to be really interesting in this. Look, we've already had 250 people submit their top 5 players of their time supporting the Imps. And so far, I think we've got 86 different players, and I've still got about 100 entries to put on. So we're going to safely touch the 100. Now, it really interests me that from across time, you're talking 100 different footballers, and some of the names that have sprung up, I look at it and think, bloody hell, where's he come from? But he meant something to somebody. I also think it's interesting to see which players endure. So, for instance, we're seeing votes, obviously, for quite a few from the 70s and the 80s. Now, in 76, arguably you would be 10 or something if you wanted to be truly kind of rating those players. So it might be that you're approaching 60 now, still using or happily using the internet to keep those players' thoughts alive. Then there's the younger players, and again, some of the younger fans rather, who are likely to pick players from the recent squads. How are they going to start rating? And they stand more of a chance of being in the generational top 100 than, say, maybe a Percy Freeman. If you were doing an all-time top 100, you would expect Percy Freeman to be in the top 5. If you're doing a generational one from where people remember, is Percy Freeman going to be above Matt Reed? It's interesting. Look, the reason we wanted to do it, we wanted to do a live show for the 100. We obviously did a live show with this, by the way, is my microphone. I'll try and hide it a little bit. There we go. We did a top 100. We wanted to do another live show. We did one with obviously Michael Appleton. We wanted to do something similar, maybe a couple of players, something down at Sinsel Bank. And unfortunately, the COVID bastard put pay to that. So we couldn't do it. And we were approaching the 100 and we kind of thought, well, what on earth are we going to do here? How are we going to celebrate it? It doesn't just want to be another kind of 40 minutes of me talking to Ben about his telly and him calling me a prick, occasionally mentioning football. We wanted to do something that would be a little bit more interactive, would probably hold a little bit of interest for a wider range of people. Arguably, there are a lot of people who have voted at the moment who probably don't listen to the podcast on a weekly basis. But are they then going to listen to see kind of, where the trends are going towards some of the players? Possibly not. We also have a thought somewhere in the back of our mind, if I can find time for it, that we might contact one or two of the players who have been voted on in the top 25 maybe. And we might kind of have a little bit of a chat with them. Probably going to be recorded rather than getting them on live, just because I always find it rude to get somebody on live for 5 minutes, certainly a player, and then kind of bin them off. I think with supporters, they're more ready to kind of dip in and out and happy for the process to go on. A little bit about how the voting structure is going to work, how I imagine the voting structure worked for the 2007 vote, which I think was an all-time top 100. What we're going to do, you're numbering them 1 to 5, your top player to your 5th favourite player. Everyone who is named top will get 5 points, second 4 points, third 3 points, and so on down to the 5th person who gets the 1 point. That then goes into a huge great big spreadsheet which satisfies my nerdy edge for tables and stats and statistics. And then we'll vote, then we'll sort it. It'll be down 1 to 100. We'll cut off at the 100, and then the head of the show, we may well publish the bottom 75. I mean, you know, being the bottom of the top 100 of anything's phenomenal. So we'll probably publish the bottom 75, and then we'll talk through the final 25. And we're hoping to have a few, you know, a few surprises and guests, hopefully. Cornell, you've put, can fans be on it? Indeed, some fans will be on it. We'll be going through the votes. If a player that you've voted is in the top 25, there's a potential that we might contact you to come on and just have a chat about that player. Potential. We shall see how we go. It's likely to be broadcast over this medium and then recorded and released as a podcast. So it's likely to be live. We want lots of interaction. We want lots of kind of buy-in from people really interested to hear the justification for some of the players, you know, or why certain players shouldn't have been included perhaps as well. So yeah, it could be interesting. Obviously, we've got Paul Stallybrass here. Choices not necessarily the best 100, but thought they would make decent interviewees. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, you know, it's up to you. If you want to put those 5 players in, you put those 5 players in. We are looking for the players that you think are probably the best. We're not looking for good interviewees as such. You know, we want a genuine list here. We don't want a list of players who we might be able to speak to. We want a list of players that have affected fans, that have impressed fans, that have driven fans, you know, to keep going to Sinsel Bank, to keep singing their name, etc. Rob Scott's got an interesting one. Bradley Wood, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pick for me. You can only pick a player once, Rob. You know, he's been a bit of a wag there. And it would be really interesting, I think, if we named somebody who had been banned almost for life from the sport for betting in the top 100. But if we do, we do. So Kate says players will vote for players who've provided special moments, not necessarily those who are consistent throughout their entire spell, such as Yeo. Now, obviously, I've chatted to Kate, I think, on occasion, that Simon Yeo, you know, a player who I think we could all identify with. You know, he came from non-league, he'd had career doing other bits and bobs. I think he'd been a postman, etc. And he just played. He played like that. He played like he was one of us. Wasn't always brilliant. 7 months without scoring in the first season. You know, after his impressive kind of playoff stint, his next game and then the following season was Oxford, and I think he was sent off after 23 minutes. But provided us with some very, very special moments and was absolutely electric. I think in the 04-05 season, might be wrong about that, might have been the season before, where he scored 20 odd goals. So again, yeah, you know, all these names, players that have appeared on the voting. So yeah, really interesting. This one hasn't appeared on the voting as yet, actually, unless I haven't got to Keith. Dave Cameron, what striker? Well, he was a better striker than he was a Prime Minister, Keith. That's what I would probably say. Chris Keneally, listening to the pod from Thursday and it pings up that you're live. So a double dose of me, which apparently Clinic 9 told me is not a good thing. So it was just a quick Facebook Live early this morning. Won't be promoting it, I don't think, over too much this video over social media, but we will be pushing the vote and we will be pushing the top 100. Going to be really, really fascinating. I'm hoping to get a couple of guests maybe to name their top 5 in the build up to it. I've had 1 or 2 kind of high profile voters already, let's say people from in and around the club who everybody will likely know, so we might get them on to talk about it. We do have a podcast special coming up this week. We do have a guest on the podcast. I won't reveal any more until it comes out, but we're hoping to have a chat with somebody, not about their top 5 players of all time, but about the club's position at the moment. And the wider state of football, and, you know, fears that potentially the season could be ended. So look, thank you very much for watching today. Really quick, haven't lost my dog all morning, which is absolutely fantastic for me. The cows are far enough away for me to not worry too much. Gone a slightly different route today, but every route I go there's cows. Actually spotted 2 of them at it. Rob, here we go. Rob Scott is actually asking about the cows. Where's them cows today? Well, I don't know if you can see in the field over there. There's some down the bottom. Different field. But still great big black bloody cows. One of them's a bull as well. Yeah, I love beef. Rob Scott loves beef. I love beef. I love steak. I'd be a vegetarian if I didn't like the taste of meat. But there we go. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. Get your votes in if you haven't done already. The website address is scrolling underneath me. If you can't catch that, it's in the comments or it's in the description as well. Hopefully we'll get back to doing another dog walk later in the week, perhaps looking ahead to Blackpool, depending on what news breaks. Might even do it in the bar this Friday ahead of the Blackpool game as well, as kind of preparation for Matchday Live. We shall see. Charlie, good morning. Charlie had a nightmare 10 minutes yesterday. I won't describe it, but he called it his worst 10, not his proudest 10 minutes of work, which I think he was due because, to be honest, Charlie's work on the Matchday Live programme and Bully, Tom Bullivant, has been utterly phenomenal. So I think he was allowed a little slip, personally, Charlie. Right, well, as I said, thank you very much for watching. Get those votes in, really important. You know, the more people who vote, more diverse spread of the fan base that vote, more likely we are to see some interesting entries on the top 100. We've already got some as well. Jimmy Newlin is watching. Let's get a live stream of their action in the field. It was yesterday, mate, so it would be a little bit behind times, unfortunately. Getting more like Sky Sports with the info bar. Yes, I should have a yellow tie on transfer deadline day. Maybe I'll just do a 24-hour live feed on transfer deadline day of me talking utter bollocks about transfers that are not going to happen, which basically would mimic Sky Sports. Although I'd have to get Laura Woods on as well, wouldn't I? I wonder if she's free. I'll drop her an email. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, if that's what it is. Cheers, bye.